Hi there, friends. I'm Vasco. I'm part of the team behind the first global Scrum Master Summit. If you're a Scrum Master, the Scrum Master Summit is a place to learn, to share, and to meet new friends. We will have lots of live sessions where you can meet and network with other Scrum Masters from all over the globe. So make sure you check it at bit.ly/SM Summit and the numeral 21. That's bit.ly/SMSUMMIT21. We have 7 amazing keynotes or more, as we are still organizing the conference as I record this, and 8 tracks that feature people like you and thought leaders sharing their insights and knowledge to help you become an awesome Scrum Master. So once again, check it out at bit.ly/SM Summit 21. That's all lowercase, all one word, SM Summit and the numeral 21. I'll see you on the virtual conference floor. All right, now on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday Leading Change episode this week with Rob Cooper. Hi, Rob. Welcome back.
Hi again. Good to be here.
So, Rob, on Wednesdays, we dive into change, and we do that because, of course, part of our work, a big part of our work is living through and working with change, as you remind us yesterday when we talked about the book that most inspired you. So let's work through that and tell us a story of a change process that you were involved with, and then pay attention and describe for us the steps, the tips, the tricks, the techniques you learned back then that you still bring to work today.
Sure. Okay. So this I want to pick up from a situation that I mentioned on Monday's podcast, and it's when I was first a Scrum Master, and the organization was, I suppose, sort of had a foot in both camps of Agile and waterfall sort of approaches to their software development. So just to recap, so I was working my first role as a Scrum Master was within a small software house, maybe sort of 100, 150 people or so, three Scrum teams, one main fairly large product that they focused around. They were working with quite, just to sort of give an example about the waterfall approach, they were working with quite long release cycles, around sort of 6 months, and they had very, very long regression testing cycles of using about half of that 6 months. So they develop for sort of a 13 weeks or so, and then they would test for 13 weeks, and then they would release. So they realized that was a pretty tough place to try and work, and they wanted to move towards Agile. So hiring me as a project manager, but then kind of training me up to be a Scrum Master was part of their approach to that. So the change process was how to become more agile, and this was interesting because I coming from a project management background, again, I was used to sort of quite concrete thinking and quite sort of, using Gantt charts to predict things and to be quite sort of mechanistic in it. But then when I started to grow as a Scrum Master, I suppose I started to realize that the people element was critical. I mean, it's fundamental to any agile sort of thinking, any agile approach. So the process involved kind of many parts, and again, sort of, I could do a few retrospectives on how I engage with that. But the change involved, I suppose, kind of 3 main parts, and this is these sort of principles I guess are common to most of the change models. It's the initial kind of shaking. It's the initial kind of energy that goes into a system to say, we need to change. Something is not right here. We have to do something. We can't stay as we are. Then there's the actual process of the change, the actual, what do we start to change, and when and how do we engage people in change? So that's kind of quite a large chunk of it. And then when you arrive at or sort of heading towards your change destination, there's the embedding of the change, and I guess that's the sort of another interesting part, and that's where I think a lot of agile transformations start to get themselves into a little bit of trouble. So going back to this particular software house I was using, the argument and to for change was quite strong. People knew that they needed to change. I guess there was resistance to change because change is difficult. It's uncomfortable. We like to stay with what we know, and that's understandable. But equally, we knew that we could not be competitive as an organization in the market, handling our software in the way that we currently had been. Our competitors would be going way past us. They could release much more quickly. They could get value to customers. They could get new features, new functionality out to customers way faster. So something had to change. So then it was a case, and this was mainly kind of driven by, well, myself and I guess a couple of managers. And I wouldn't claim I did this in a really great way either. And again, looking back, there's a lot of things I would have changed, but I took quite a sort of tactical approach. So it was really around changing some of the Scrum practices and some of the product owning practices that were in place, and then using that as a basis to start to tackle the release cycle and the way that we approached what at that time trying to test in quality. So that was the sort of the start of it. So the techniques that I used, so I did in terms of kind of gathering the sort of the reason and the impetus and the energy for us to change. That was a mixture of creating the narrative of we can't survive if we use a 6-month release cycle. We can't survive if we are trying to test in quality and not embedding testing, either being automated for test coverage and, as part of the development practices, embedding.
So kind of the platform for change.
Absolutely, the platform for change, linked with engaging the management to say, this is a thing. And they already kind of knew it, but it was a way of exposing it to the organizations. People were all on board. Well, we're essentially on board and happy to put in the effort and the pain to go through that change.
So that would be a little bit like using the management's ability to communicate as a way to propagate the message about the impetus or the reason, the platform for change.
Absolutely. And also they were able to support some of the technical things that we needed to put in place and support that from a technical practice point of view. So technical managers as well as and product managers as well. So they were able to support that, and I guess that is critical, because if it didn't have that support, I think we could say that the change wouldn't have got off the ground, because a lone voice or even a few voices, I think it's a very, very kind of tough thing. It's possible, but at some point you have to bring influence to be able to create some sort of sense of unity around the need for change within the area that you're looking to bring that change.
So, as I hear you describe this process, I hear you talking about management, and it sounds to me that management was kind of the core group for change here. That they were the ones that ultimately made sure that the change process would, thrive over time. Is that how you saw it?
They were certainly the enablers. I guess you identify people who are more keen on change, and I think those are also to create a group of allies and sort of people who can really articulate the wide range of the need for change, but then also bringing that together and making it as a sort of a coherent message that can be then communicated through management, or you engage in management and then they can communicate and support that whole process. Because I think it was something that bits and pieces, elements of that change and the need for change were already there. It's just that they perhaps hadn't been brought together in a sort of a coherence that could give a strong strategic direction.
Actually, what you just said triggers a thought in my mind, which is that a successful change is one for which there is already demand, even if it's not widely distributed, right? Like if no one wanted that change, it would have been much harder. But what you're saying is that through the work that you did, you picked up the signs, the leads of that change process that was kind of already in movement, and you just amplified it through creating the narrative and working with management to propagate that narrative and so on, right?
Absolutely. If you were starting from scratch, even if there was sort of no understanding for the need for change, you would have a pretty sizable job on your hands, I would say. But I guess people sort of, probably to some degree, everybody felt the discomfort of the current situation, as was. It just wasn't a nice situation. Trying to do 13 weeks solid of testing, doing massive of just, it was complete coverage. So it wasn't even selecting. It was just doing, right, we're just going to do 6,000 tests. There you go. And it was a painful process. And we also knew that the results is sort of, okay, well, how many, surely that amount of testing led to successful releases, right? No. There was issues afterwards, and all the normal post-release quality issues that
absolutely.
you might. So it's not as if it was successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Which reminds us that when we are tasked with working with change, it's always better to find what people already want to change and bring that together, crystallize it in a message, help the teams and the organization move on with that change. But definitely don't try to bring a change for which there is no need and no demand, right? Like pick the signs, the demands that are already there. It's a great reminder. Thank you for that, Rob.
Very welcome.
Leading change is one of the core skills we must acquire, but it is only one of the steps towards our success as Scrum Masters. Tomorrow, on Success Thursday, we will talk about how to define success for the Scrum Master role. We'll cover tips on how to measure your way to that position, and most importantly, how to develop that focus on continuous improvement that is as important for Scrum Masters as it is for teams. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.